This is Living Catholic with Father Don Wolf. Living Catholic is a fresh look at issues confronting each of us today. This show deals with living Catholic, what that means for Catholics, as well as the impact on the rest of society. You certainly don't have to be Catholic to enjoy this show. And now your host, Father Don Wolf.
Welcome, Oklahoma, to Living Catholic. Father Don Wolf, pastor at Sacred Heart Parish and rector of the Shrine at Blessed Stanley Rother. And I'd like to begin today by responding to a question that has come up from time to time about our program. People have asked me, now that podcasts are posted, where they might be able to get the rest of our broadcasts. On Spotify, for example, Living Catholic programs only go back 1 year. But we've been broadcasting for a full 12 years. That's, 600 programs? Where can you go to get some of the previous ones? And the answer is easy. They're archived on the Oklahoma Catholic Radio website. So if you want to listen to a back broadcast or just look and see what we've talked about over the years, and it's quite a range from movie reviews and elections to funerals and our final destination, get on your computer, go to the internet and type in OKCR. The title Oklahoma Catholic Radio will come up on your search. Just tap on it and you'll go to the website. There'll be a number of boxes there under the title, and highlight the Listen button. This will drop down several options. Highlight the Previously Aired box, and when you do that, you'll get to Living Catholic with Father Don Wolf. When you highlight that, all of the previously aired programs will come up, with the exception of the year 2018. I don't know exactly why that year has been excluded. I'll go searching for those programs so we can upload those as well. But all of the other years are available there from 2012 to the present. And all of them are titled so you can get a sense of the subject. That's all there is to it. Just in case you'd like to listen more or listen to the wider variety of programs than what has been on our podcast in the last 12 months. It's all available. Isn't technology wonderful? Now, to our program for today. If you follow Facebook, you know that I had a brief procedure at the heart hospital the other day. Father Scott Beckman wanted to be sure people knew about it upcoming so that they could pray for me. So he posted on his page what I was planning so as to solicit the prayers of the people in the parish for me. Before he did this, he asked me about it and sought my permission. He didn't want to post information that I didn't want to be common knowledge. And since I'm opposed to secrecy, I told him it'd be fine. Thus it is that he let it be known, and thus the whole world was aware of my procedure at the heart hospital. Normally, I would have kept quiet about the whole thing. I've never thought it was terribly serious, and I wasn't looking for sympathy. But again, I don't believe the world should keep secrets, and I don't like it when we shush the truth about one another. On the other hand, given my druthers, I would have kept most of this to myself and to my family. But I am the pastor, and the parish does have a right to know how I'm doing and what's going on with me. And I do believe in the power of prayer. It's a broad fact also that people can't pray for you and for your recovery if they don't know you need it. So when Father Scott asked if I'd permit him to post it on his page, I was confronted by my own convictions. And it was time to put my principle into practice, so I said yes. And thus, so it was. The whole world knew about what was going to happen. Just so that you know, I'm fine. The whole thing only lasted a few minutes and went well. Actually, the process takes longer to get over than it takes to complete. And I mean by that, it took longer to be sure I would get over what was done to me than it took to do the thing itself. Which I guess isn't a bad way to describe a lot of things we do in the name of repairing what goes wrong with us. As it turned out, to be safe, I spent the night in the hospital and went home the next day. The only thing I suffered as a result of all this was that I had to catch up on my sleep once I got home, since we all know it's just about impossible to sleep through the night when you're in a hospital bed. The procedure was a common one. I had a heart stent put in my coronary artery. There was a blockage detected, so my heart doctor decided it would be helpful to clear away the blockage and lessen the chance of a heart attack by putting in a stent. They went through the artery in my arm and threaded the stent into the artery that feeds my heart. It's a pretty amazing procedure when you think about it, taking care of my heart health by intervening to take care of a blockage by using my body's own transportation system to put in a small pipe to facilitate the flow of blood to my heart. This is my first contact with this process, which I know has been around for a while, but describing such a thing even a generation ago would have sounded more like science fiction than medicinal fact. However, here we are in the 21st century. I'm grateful to my doctor and to the team of people who worked to make this thing happen. What impressed me more than anything was that the whole process ran so smoothly. From when I checked in until it was time to leave, everyone responded with professional ease and assurance. It was comforting to see that everybody knew what he or she was doing. It's no small thing to know they're going to push something into your body. Even when you know it's to protect you and to bring you to the fullest state of health, it's intimidating to contemplate exactly what's happening. Encountering the professionalism of everyone involved and their quiet confidence as they set about their work gave me, in turn, the greatest sense of confidence in what they were to do. I don't know if you'd call the procedure space age. That's an obsolete description that came out of our fascination with technology more than 60 years ago. But it was certainly the product of our current technological progress. Routinely threading a tool through your bloodstream in order to address a problem in your artery at your heart, now that's a nifty set of tools. Being able to address bodily concerns from the inside seems to me to be a pretty good way of taking care of things. I suppose the very best way would be to address what had caused the situation in the first place. Rather than an appliance to fix up a problem or address a condition, the most intricate and systematic way to repair a problem on the inside would be to get at the root cause from the inside and have the body's power to fix itself switched on. When we can get this to happen, that sort of technology, the technology used now would seem more like fixing up medicinal problems with lug wrenches and screwdrivers rather than with sophisticated instruments and finely tuned procedures. But of course, that awaits other technological breakthroughs, I presume. I am deeply grateful that there was a huge team of people who are at work to make these things happen every day. From the technologists and engineers who design and produce these machines and procedures to the technicians and nurses and doctors who make use of them, there's a gigantic reservoir of knowledge and practice that makes this therapy possible to people like me. It's humbling to know that dozens of people involved in my care have spent a lifetime of study and dedicated practice to make themselves available to help me in my time of need. And to be honest, I never gave any of them one moment's thought until this problem came up and I had to address it. I wasn't blind to them. I know the medical industry's present and active. My own sisters and nieces are nurses and have worked in it for decades. But to know such people are present, that they've made themselves available so that in my time of need, there are those whose steady hands are ready to thread a probe and a tube through my arteries in order to heal me, is to prompt an entire new level of gratitude in me. In fact, as I have become mindful of this reality in my life, I've been searching for the right words for it. What do you say when you wake up to that which is in your awareness but not in your vision? For me, the reality of my condition as well as the technology and techniques available to ameliorate it are part of something new. I'm still looking to find out how to talk about it. My words, my thinking hasn't been adequate to it so far. A few years ago, I read a fascinating article in the Wall Street Journal about the then current medical process in the fight against cancer. In the article, the author mentioned that scientists have now had enough progress in their investigations to begin banging up against the wall of metaphor. That is to say, the progress in medical research has left them grasping for pictures and explanations that are adequate for what they're finding. Not only are they looking for the right causes and effects, they're looking for the right words to describe what they're seeing. For example, they've gone way past the image of the functioning of the body as a kind of machine. In this word picture, the problems that the body experiences is when one part wears out and needs to be replaced or repaired. But cancer isn't like that at all. But since the word picture is from the Victorian age and isn't very sophisticated, they're looking for other images, other descriptions of how the body works and what happens when it doesn't work. Other word pictures from our own age have been drug into the conceptual process, therefore. The functioning of the body is a kind of computer program in which sets of instructions are executed according to the inputs and responses inherent in the system. That seems for them to be a helpful description, In cancer, then, what goes wrong is in the execution of the instructions, or maybe the inability to filter out the noise in the signal that the body receives, or some such metaphorical process. As in every effort to understand, words become necessary, but fall short. In our age of exploration, the researchers are struggling to get to the point where their discoveries fit together in a description that's found useful. Not only are they struggling to find out what they don't know yet, they're struggling to understand what they have already found. And behind this struggle is the presumption that there'll be a moment in which someone will have a eureka moment and begin to see the relationships and interconnections that have so far eluded them. It's an effort to find the words, not just the facts, which is a little how I feel when it comes to this whole experience. I've always been able to presume on my good health throughout my life. I've never had to worry about being sick or even had to be concerned about taking care of myself. During COVID, for example, I trusted that I wouldn't get sick, and I didn't. The only time I've ever had to concern myself with any kind of medical issues was when I had broken bones, which is a lot different than coming down with an illness or have something stop working. When I first heard the doctor tell me he was concerned about something he had found in his examination, it was a shocking experience. I'd never heard anything like that before. Knowing that I might have to address something in me, that there might be something wrong, was simply not a part of my idea of myself. To tell you the truth, I had always thought of those who were sick as different than myself, as, a different species. They simply never had anything to do with me. I don't mean I dismissed them or thought less of them. I didn't feel put off by them or even feel repulsed by what they were going through. I sympathized with their suffering and understood how hard it could be for them. After all, I've been around sick people my whole life. It's part of my priesthood. But in all of this, I never once thought that this might be me, that I might experience some sort of bodily weakness or some sort of condition that might limit me in what I could do or might limit my future in some way. That had never really crossed my mind. Call it self-centered or egotistical or simply foolish. All those descriptions fit. But in my self-conception, I'd never applied the language of sickness to myself. I'm just not that kind of guy, I said to myself. When I thought about my future, and I've done that more and more now that I'm drawing Social Security and the guys I went to school with are all now retiring, I just didn't think about medical issues. I thought, when I thought about it at all, I thought I'd just kind of walk through life day after day without much notion of growing weak or limited or sick. Although I mostly hadn't known anyone who didn't have some sort of problem as he got older, I mostly thought I never would. A couple of years ago, there was an article in America magazine about how we think of ourselves getting older. It was written by a moral theologian who described how difficult it is to get people to think about the issues of medical care and aging. He used a description he'd gotten from an author to describe what we in our society think about getting older. About this, he wrote, "We think of dying as, at the age of 96, having just beaten our son in 3 sets of tennis, we jump over the net and then lie back in our lover's arms to expire. No weaknesses, no pain, no distress, and no loss." I laughed when I read that, but now I know I'm a part of that same society. It's this image I carry around somewhere in my psyche. The language for my aging isn't something I've found yet. Of course, I've known priests who've worked until they retired and then remained active and engaged in their ministry virtually until the very day they died. Father Bill Ross was in this camp, for example, as well as a number of others. But for each one of them, there have to be a dozen others who were not able to escape the ravages of old age, who had to limit their work and cut back on what they were able to do as they got older. But mostly, I never thought about them. The irony of aging also has something to do with some of the humiliating aspects of growing older. It's not just the fact that we face changes to our stamina and our abilities. It's also that we find out we're wrong about so many of the attitudes of our lives. In my case, I have also internalized the teaching in our society that if you do all the healthy things prescribed by the experts when it comes to health and well-being, you'll skate through life without the problems that bedevil other people. So if you get your exercise and care for your teeth, if you eat high fiber and stay away from processed foods, if you're connected to your family and find your work meaningful, if you address the stressors in your life and allow others to help you, well, then you'll be able to enjoy the fullness of years for which you have hoped. And as far as we know, all those recommendations are to the good. It's just that a person can do all these things and still find himself subject to the challenges of mortality. In fact, as we get older, we all know people who've been careful about every aspect of their lives, who've done all that anyone could expect in order to practice the health and goodness of life, who still grew sick and died early. While at the same time, there are those who do none of these things, and yet who cheat the grim reaper at every turn, and who seem to escape the limitations of nature. When you've been around a while, you get to see everything, and one of the things to be seen is the deep unfairness of life and the blazing power of mortality. I have to say, I'm still quite ungrateful for all that I've received in my life. Here I've enjoyed wonderful health and a robust life for many years, and this first time I've encountered a real concern, although it involved no symptoms or any limitations, I'm still whining about it as if I were laid up in an asylum. When I can summon the dignity to stop feeling sorry for myself, I am truly grateful for all the blessings I've been entrusted. Of all that could have happened in the course of my life, and all the things that did not happen, I've been spared. As my doctor said once as he looked through some of the test results at my annual physical, I was born with some protection. And in my better moments, I know it. But it's humbling to know just how thin the layer of gratitude and the layer of faith lies in my life. The first thing I thought of when I heard the doctor's office tell me that I should come in because they'd found something that needed to be addressed, my first response was fear. What would happen to me, I wondered, and what would happen to the invulnerability I had presumed all these years? Suddenly, I felt afraid. I could see hospital rooms and surgery suites in my future, and nothing else. And I felt like I'd been singled out and punished somehow. I had to go through the entire range of responses and try out every point of view about sickness and disability before I was able to find a moment of confidence in God's promises. I didn't respond in faith at first. I had to find it later. I responded first in fear. Pope Benedict once said that those who live in environments of fear and suffering are often the first to teach us of the power of God in the world. Those who criticize our belief in God, he said, often describe the pointless sufferings and staggering disabilities so much of the world endures as a proof that if God exists, the divine is neither all-loving nor all-powerful. But, the Pope said, most often those who criticize God are not the ones who are doing the suffering. They, the ones who endure the pain and uncertainty of life, are often perfectly peaceful in what they experience. We all know they're the ones most likely to trust in God's merciful benevolence and the last to critique it. I've found it to be so in my brush with fragility. Those I have known who have endured sickness and disability are the ones who appreciate good health the most, and the ones who are the most grateful to have it. And they are almost universally the ones who are the most deeply faithful. It's one of the paradoxes of prosperity. Those of us who enjoy the fruits of this world the most are the ones least likely to appreciate them. And those of us who know suffering least are the ones most rattled by it. It's not a new theme. The entire book of Job in the Bible is a reflection on the ironies of life reflected through the truth of suffering. Ultimately, God invites Job to consider that only God knows the fullest possible extent of the place of pain and misery in creation. And since only God does, we can trust in the divine potential given to us in these moments when our own fragility and the imposing power of the world collide. I know all those things in my own life. Growing up, I had to confront the pains of loss and grief. In many respects, these are part of the foundations of my priestly calling. But the lessons they bring are easy to forget when our pain is soothed and our losses are ameliorated. Coming face to face with weakness is when we have to learn them again. And like always, it's a whole new experience to encounter new pains and new limitations. No matter what we know of them, is to find them again as if finding them for the first time. Knowing of my vulnerability and hearing the sharp concern in the doctor's voice was an invitation to a faithful response. And I do admit it took a while to find it in this new landscape. and I came to it only when it was clear that there is no other way to respond. Ultimately, we trust in God or we don't, and that is what I will do. Trust. I rejoice in the triumph of medicine and technology and skill. I give thanks for the dedication of its practitioners, and I'm overwhelmed by these gifts given to me. But in all things, I trust in the promise of the divine accompaniment and the holy prospect of God who acts for my good. Ultimately, I, are in God's hands, and ultimately we make our way through the world propped up by God's own support. It took me this brush with the complications of living to remind me that God's promises is for life and is even beyond the boundaries of living. That is, above all, what we're given, that promise. I can't think of anything better than that. We might even say we have a heart for it. Back in just a moment. Welcome back to our final segment, Faith in Verse. We have a poem today called None of Us Knows. None of us knows what we want. Isn't that the wildest thing? It's obvious a human stunt that makes us animal kings. For if we were but pure instinct, driven by just urges and appetites, every notion would be an eye blink and all consideration but a blight. But we are bounced around by our restless hunger to get. We follow the facile, are bound to worry and jitter and fret. Our eyes flit to and fret following the next thing, then to another, even though it's artificial bling. The only solution? To submit to the guidance there beyond, entrusted if we admit our frailty has us conned, for we were made for more than the mere passage of days. From us should come the store of life beyond the haze. That all and we can see and know clearly about our discipline makes us free, conquers fragile doubt. That's none of us knows. Here at Living Catholic, our invitation always is the opportunity to go behind what we see and to plumb the depths of what there is among us. That's what all of us have the chance to do in our daily lives if we live the life of faith to the fullest extent. I hope that that's what we can do in the future here on Living Catholic as you join us again.
Living Catholic is a production of Oklahoma Catholic Radio. To learn more, visit okcr.org.